courtroom doors opened at 9:30 a.m., and 21-year-old Tyler Harrison walked in with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. His designer Oxford shirt, Brooks Brothers, probably $200, was pressed perfectly, and he carried a leather portfolio like he was heading to a business meeting. Behind him walked his father, Dr. Robert Harrison, a prominent cardiac surgeon at Massachusetts General Hospital, wearing a suit that probably cost $3,000. An expensive attorney followed, carrying multiple briefcases. Tyler didn't look worried. He looked annoyed, like this was an inconvenience interrupting more important things. Before we dive into what happened in that courtroom, if you believe in justice and want to support a new channel dedicated to sharing these powerful stories, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Every subscription helps us bring more of Judge Caprio's wisdom to light. The bailiff called the case. The People versus Tyler James Harrison, case number 2024 CR 18945. Charges: driving under the influence, reckless endangerment of a minor, 12 counts. Operating a vehicle on school property and leaving the scene. Potential sentence: up to 5 years in state prison. The courtroom went silent at the severity of the charges. This wasn't a traffic ticket. This was serious criminal prosecution. Tyler's attorney, a polished man named Richard Thornton from a Boston firm, stood immediately. Your Honor, my client is a second-year medical student at Brown University with a 3.9 GPA. He has no prior criminal record. This was an isolated incident of poor judgment, not criminal intent. We're requesting consideration of his exemplary record and bright future. Judge Frank Caprio looked up from the thick file before him. His 37 years on the bench had taught him that the cases with the most confident defendants often told the darkest stories. Mr. Harrison, please approach the bench. Tyler walked forward with his portfolio, standing straight with practiced confidence. His father sat in the first row, arms crossed, watching intently. Mr. Harrison, I'm looking at the police report from Officer Sarah Chen, dated October 12th at 3:47 p.m. It says you drove through the playground of Washington Elementary School at 62 miles per hour while children were present. A blood alcohol test administered 90 minutes later showed a BAC of 0.09. Is this accurate? Tyler's voice was steady, almost clinical. Your Honor, I'd like to provide context. I was returning from a study session where I consumed 2 beers over 4 hours. Given my body mass, 185 pounds, and my understanding of alcohol metabolism, I was well below legal limits when I was driving. The BAC reading 90 minutes later doesn't accurately reflect my impairment at the time of the incident. Judge Caprio leaned forward. You drove through an elementary school playground at 62 miles per hour? I took what I believed was a shortcut through school property to avoid traffic on Hope Street. It was a calculated decision based on GPS routing. The posted speed limit on school grounds is 15 miles per hour, but school had been dismissed 20 minutes earlier. I assessed the risk as minimal. Mr. Harrison, the report says there were children present, 12 children specifically. Tyler waved his hand dismissively. After-school program children. They were on playground equipment, not in the driving path. My trajectory was clear. I maintained full control of my vehicle, a 2023 Mercedes C-Class with advanced safety features. The risk was negligible. The courtroom was dead silent, everyone stunned by the young man's cold, analytical description of nearly killing children. Let me understand something. You drove drunk through a playground full of children and you describe it as negligible risk? Your Honor, I wasn't drunk. As a medical student, I understand alcohol metabolism far better than most people. I can metabolize alcohol much more efficiently than average due to my enzyme profile. 2 beers over 4 hours meant I was functionally sober. My risk assessment was sound. What happened next would shock everyone in the courtroom. Judge Caprio picked up a tablet. Mr. Harrison, multiple witnesses gave statements, and the school's security cameras captured the entire incident. I'd like the court to see what your sound risk assessment looked like. Tyler's confidence flickered slightly. Your Honor, I don't think video is necessary. I've acknowledged the facts. Play the video. The courtroom monitors showed security footage from Washington Elementary School. The timestamp read October 12th, 3:47 p.m. Children were visible on playground equipment, swings, slides, a jungle gym. Teachers stood nearby supervising. Then a silver Mercedes appeared, driving at high speed across the parking lot toward the playground. The car didn't slow down. It drove directly through the playground area, missing the jungle gym by feet. Children scattered, screaming. Teachers grabbed kids and dove out of the way. One child fell off a swing trying to get away. Another fell from a slide. The Mercedes continued through the playground, across the grass, and out through a side exit. The entire sequence took maybe 10 seconds, but it was terrifying to watch. The video switched to a different camera angle showing parents arriving for pickup. The Mercedes was stopped at the school exit by a parent's car blocking the way. Tyler's window was down. You could hear his voice clearly, even on the security footage. "Move your car. I'm in a hurry." A mother ran up to the window, her voice shaking. "You almost killed those kids. What is wrong with you?" Tyler's response made the courtroom gasp. Maybe parents should teach their brats not to play in the road. I had somewhere important to be. This is a playground. You drove through a children's playground. And I didn't hit anyone, did I? So move your car before I call the police on you for blocking traffic. The video showed parents surrounding the car, some on phones calling 911. Tyler kept honking his horn, yelling at them to move. When police finally arrived minutes later, he was still arguing that he'd done nothing wrong. The video ended. The courtroom was in complete shock. Even Tyler's father had gone pale. If Judge Caprio's compassion moves you, like it moves millions of others, show your support by subscribing to our channel. We're just starting out, and your subscription means everything. Judge Caprio set down the tablet. Mr. Harrison, you drove at 62 miles per hour through a playground full of children. You nearly killed 12 kids and 3 teachers. And when parents confronted you, you called their children brats and blamed them for playing in a playground. Tyler's jaw tightened. Your Honor, with respect, my words were taken out of context. I was in shock from the confrontation. Those parents were aggressive and threatening. They were terrified because you nearly killed their children. I understand emotions were high, but objectively speaking, I maintained control of my vehicle. My hand-eye coordination was not impaired. I successfully navigated through a crowded space without causing any collisions. That demonstrates skill, not recklessness. Judge Caprio stood up from his bench. You're describing nearly killing children as a demonstration of skill. I'm describing it accurately, Your Honor. As a future physician, I'm trained to assess situations objectively, without emotional bias. Was my speed excessive for the environment? Yes. Did I make contact with any person or object? No. Those are the relevant facts. Mr. Harrison, one of the children who fell from the slide, Emma Rodriguez, 7 years old. She broke her arm. She fell because you terrified her so badly she tried to run and fell 12 feet. Her mother gave a statement describing Emma's nightmares, her fear of cars, her crying at drop-off every morning now. Would you like to hear that statement? Tyler's face remained impassive. I regret that someone was injured, but correlation isn't causation. The child fell from playground equipment. I didn't touch her. To hold me responsible for an indirect consequence of her own actions is her own actions. She's 7 years old, Mr. Harrison. She was playing on a playground. You're the one who drove drunk through a school. I wasn't drunk. I keep explaining this. My medical knowledge of alcohol metabolism. Your medical knowledge? Judge Caprio's voice rose. You're a second-year medical student. You've been studying medicine for barely 18 months. You think that makes you qualified to decide you're sober enough to drive through a children's playground? Tyler's confidence cracked slightly. I've completed pharmacology and toxicology courses. I understand ethanol metabolism better than most police officers who administer breathalyzers. Officer Chen, who responded to this incident, has 15 years of experience and specialized training in DUI enforcement. Are you suggesting you know better than her? I'm suggesting that my scientific understanding of the situation was more accurate than the emotional reactions of parents and police who weren't looking at the data objectively. Dr. Harrison finally stood up from the gallery. Your Honor, may I speak? Dr. Harrison, are you representing your son? No, Your Honor. But I think I can provide important context. Tyler is an exceptionally gifted student. He's been accepted to a prestigious surgical residency program conditional on completing medical school. His future in medicine is essentially guaranteed. I'm asking the court to consider that a criminal conviction would destroy that future. Society needs doctors like Tyler, intelligent, rational, capable of making difficult decisions under pressure. Judge Caprio looked at the prominent surgeon. Dr. Harrison, your son drove drunk through a playground and nearly killed 12 children, and his response was to blame the children for playing there. You want me to consider his future medical career? Your Honor, my son made a mistake, a significant mistake. But he's 21 years old with unlimited potential to do good in this world. He'll save lives as a surgeon, hundreds, maybe thousands of lives over his career. That future should be weighed against one incident of poor judgment. One incident where he nearly killed 12 children. Tyler stepped forward. Your Honor, my father is right. I understand the court needs to respond to this incident. But proportionality matters. People destined to save lives should be trusted to make informed decisions about acceptable risk. I've spent years preparing for a medical career. I've scored in the 99th percentile on every exam I've taken. I have research publications in peer-reviewed journals. One mistake shouldn't erase all of that potential. Judge Caprio sat back down slowly. When he spoke, his voice was ice. Mr. Harrison, let me make sure I understand your argument. You believe your intelligence and your future medical career mean you should face lesser consequences for nearly killing children. I believe context matters, Your Honor. My actions, while regrettable, didn't result in any serious harm. Emma Rodriguez's broken arm isn't serious harm. The 12 children having nightmares isn't serious harm. The parents who watched you nearly kill their kids and then heard you call them brats. That trauma isn't serious. I'm speaking from a medical perspective about quantifiable injuries. You're speaking from a perspective of complete moral bankruptcy. Judge Caprio's voice cut through the courtroom like a knife. In my 37 years on this bench, I have never seen such callous disregard for human life. You nearly killed children, and your only concern is protecting your own future. Your Honor, I think you're allowing emotion to cloud Mr. Harrison, I'm going to interrupt you because I don't think you understand the severity of the situation. You are not here for a traffic violation. You are here on 12 counts of reckless endangerment. The prosecution is recommending 5 years in state prison. Your attorney has asked me to consider probation because of your promising future. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do instead. The courtroom held its breath. First, I'm accepting the prosecution's recommendation with a modification. You're sentenced to 2 years in the Rhode Island State Prison, with credit for time served. Given the severity of endangering children and your complete lack of remorse, I don't believe probation is appropriate. Tyler's face went white. His father stood up shouting, "Your Honor, you can't." Dr. Harrison, sit down or you'll be removed from this courtroom. Judge Caprio continued. Second, upon release, you will be permanently barred from operating any motor vehicle in the state of Rhode Island. Not a suspension, a permanent revocation of your driving privileges. You drove drunk through a playground. You will never drive again. Your Honor, I need to be able to drive for... You needed to not drive drunk through a playground full of children, Mr. Harrison. You failed at that basic responsibility. But my medical career, I can't get to hospitals, to clinics. Then you'll take public transportation like millions of Americans do every day. Or perhaps you'll move to a city with better transit. But you will not endanger people with your driving ever again. Tyler was shaking now, his composure completely gone. You're destroying my future over one mistake. Third, Judge Caprio continued, his voice hard. I'm sending a letter to the Rhode Island Board of Medical Licensure detailing this case. While they make their own decisions about medical licenses, I'm recommending that you be barred from ever practicing medicine in this state. The courtroom erupted. Tyler's attorney jumped up. Your Honor, you can't interfere with medical licensing. I'm not interfering, Mr. Thornton. I'm providing information about a criminal conviction to a licensing board, which is standard procedure. The medical board will decide what to do with that information. Tyler's voice was nearly a scream now. You're ending my career, everything I've worked for, 7 years of university, hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans. You can't do this. Judge Caprio leaned forward. Mr. Harrison, you stood in this courtroom and argued that your medical knowledge made you qualified to drive drunk. You described nearly killing children as a demonstration of skill. You called traumatized children brats. You showed no remorse, no empathy, no understanding of the gravity of your actions. Those qualities, arrogance, callousness, inability to acknowledge mistakes, those are not qualities we need in physicians. I would be an excellent doctor. My professors say I'm brilliant. Brilliant and dangerous, Mr. Harrison. Medicine requires more than intelligence. It requires compassion, humility, and the ability to put patients' welfare above your own convenience. You drove through a playground to save time. What would you do as a surgeon to save time? Cut corners? Skip safety protocols? You've shown us exactly who you are. Dr. Harrison stood again, his voice breaking. Your Honor, please. You're right that my son needs to learn humility. He needs consequences. But destroying his medical career, Dr. Harrison, your son destroyed his own career when he made the decision to drive drunk through a playground. I'm simply ensuring he doesn't have the opportunity to endanger patients the way he endangered those children. Tyler collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. For the first time, he looked like what he was, a 21-year-old kid who just realized he couldn't talk his way out of this. Judge Caprio's voice softened slightly. Mr. Harrison, you have 2 years in prison to think about the choices you made. maybe you'll develop some of the empathy and humility you're currently lacking. Maybe the medical board will give you a second chance someday. But that's not my decision. My job is to protect this community from someone who believed his intelligence made him above the law. I'll appeal this, Tyler said weakly. You're welcome to try. But my sentence stands. You'll be remanded to custody immediately to begin serving your sentence. As bailiffs approached Tyler, his father tried to reach him, but security held him back. Tyler looked at his father one last time, finally showing emotion, tears streaming down his face as he realized the magnitude of what he'd lost. 1 year into his sentence, Tyler Harrison was no longer the arrogant medical student who'd stood before Judge Caprio. Prison had stripped away the confidence, the dismissiveness, the sense of superiority. He worked in the prison library, helping other inmates prepare for GED tests. He attended every therapy session offered, and he wrote letters to Emma Rodriguez's family apologizing for her broken arm and nightmares, to every parent whose child had been in that playground, accepting full responsibility for his actions. The medical board reviewed his case and, as Judge Caprio had recommended, barred him from medical licensure in Rhode Island. Other states followed. His medical career was over before it began. 7 years of education, $300,000 in student loans, dreams of becoming a surgeon, all gone because of 60 seconds of arrogance and entitlement. When Tyler was released after serving 18 months with good behavior, he didn't fight the licensing decisions. He understood now what Judge Caprio had seen, that he'd been dangerous not just because he drove drunk, but because he believed his intelligence made him infallible. He got a job as a medical billing coordinator at a community clinic. It wasn't surgery, but it was healthcare. He took the bus to work every day, remembering the judge's words about millions of Americans using public transit. And sometimes, riding that bus, he'd see children and think about how close he'd come to killing 12 of them, and how lucky he was that all he destroyed was his own future, not theirs. If this story touched your heart, if you believe judges like Frank Caprio represent the best of our justice system, please support our new channel by subscribing and liking this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that justice and compassion can coexist. Comment below with your city. Let's build a community that believes in fairness for all. The story of Tyler Harrison became required reading and ethics classes at medical schools across New England. It demonstrated that intelligence without character is not just useless, it's dangerous. That promising futures don't excuse present actions. That the courtroom truly is the great equalizer, where a 3.9 GPA means nothing and a drunk drive through a playground means everything. Judge Caprio kept a photo on his desk. The Washington Elementary playground, children playing safely, supervised by watchful teachers. It reminded him that some decisions aren't about mercy or second chances. They're about ensuring that someone who valued their own convenience over children's lives never gets the power to make life and death decisions over patients. Tyler walked into that courtroom believing his medical career made him special. He walked out understanding that the children he nearly killed were infinitely more valuable than any career he'd ever have. And in that painful lesson, in that destruction of arrogant entitlement, perhaps he finally learned what medical school had failed to teach him, that every life matters, especially the lives you're too privileged to notice. That's not just justice. That's protection.